They say the hardest thing in baseball isn't finding talent, it's deciding who sits down when everyone deserves to stand up. And that uncomfortable truth is staring straight back at the Toronto Blue Jays right now. As we creep towards opening day, the afterglow of a thunderous $330 million spending spree has faded, and what's left is a whiteboard full of names, arrows, and erased dreams. Welcome back to the Blue Jays Report, where today we're not talking about OPS or ERA, but about a far more unforgiving opponent, simple arithmetic. 7 players, 3 outfield spots, 1 front office with a migraine that no amount of analytics can soothe. On paper, this is the kind of problem fans beg for during rebuild years, yet in reality, it's a slow-burning tension that can quietly poison a season if mishandled. The Blue Jays didn't just reload this winter, they overcorrected with intent, swagger, and more than a hint of bravado. And now, the roster is buckling under the weight of its own ambition. The arrival of Kazuma Okamoto didn't politely knock on the door of this lineup, it kicked it in and rearranged the furniture. With Okamoto cemented at third base and Andres Jimenez projected to take the reins at shortstop in the post-Bichette world, the infield suddenly feels resolved, almost serene. But baseball is never that kind. That sense of calm came at the cost of chaos elsewhere, because the ripple effect shoved a collection of capable, hungry bats into the outfield like commuters onto an already packed train. Dalton Varsho, Addison Barger, Anthony Santander, Nathan Lukes, Miles Straw, Joey Loperfido, and the cult hero himself, Davis Schneider, are now circling 3 starting jobs like sharks who've just realized there's only 1 seal left. And that's assuming George Springer commits fully to life as a designated hitter, which, if we're honest, is still more theory than gospel. You don't need a calculator to see the imbalance here. And no, this isn't just a good problem to have. It's inefficiency dressed up as depth. There is something almost tragic about watching value rot on the bench, especially when that value has a face fans adore. Davis Schneider is not a superstar in the traditional sense, but baseball has always had room for its folk heroes, and Schneider became exactly that. The mustache, the goggles, the lunch pail grit, it all felt authentic in an era obsessed with polish. He didn't just produce, he resonated, and a 797 OPS in limited action wasn't some fluke born of vibes and good lighting. But sentiment, as cruel as it sounds, doesn't close out October games. Anthony Santander needs everyday at-bats to justify his contract. Varsho anchors the defense, and suddenly Schneider is stranded between usefulness and redundancy. That's where the whispers begin, and they're growing louder by the day. Around the league, the Blue Jays are being painted not as hoarders, but as hunters, quietly preparing to turn surplus into salvation. Enter St. Louis, stage left, with Chaim Bloom sniffing around like a man who smells inefficiency from 3 time zones away. The Cardinals want a right-handed bat with flexibility and upside, and Schneider fits that brief uncomfortably well. In return, Toronto's eyes are fixed on Jojo Romero, a name that doesn't trend on social media but absolutely should. Romero isn't flashy, he's surgical, the kind of reliever who strolls into chaos and leaves silence behind. His 2025 numbers were obscene in the best way possible, and he's exactly the sort of left-handed weapon this bullpen lacks. Of course, there's a catch, because there's always a catch. Romero is a rental. A 1-year gamble that trades control for immediacy, tomorrow for right now. If his elbow betrays him, this move becomes a cautionary tale. If he's carving through the heart of the Yankees' order in October, he becomes immortal. And this is where the logic hardens. The rotation is a fortress, a genuinely terrifying collection of arms that should keep Toronto in every series they play. But the bridge to the 9th inning is shaky, especially from the left side. Asking this bullpen to navigate October with unanswered questions is like driving into a storm with 1 working headlight. Acquiring Romero doesn't just add talent, it restores order, pushing pieces into roles that suit them rather than exposing them. The fan base, predictably, is split straight down the middle. One half clings to the romance of the underdog, the homegrown grinder who feels like one of us. The other half is tired of moral victories and wants ruthlessness, clarity, a front office that treats the championship window like a fragile thing that must be climbed through before it slams shut. This potential trade sits right at the fault line of that debate, uncomfortable and unavoidable. And that's why it matters. Trading Davis Schneider wouldn't just be a roster move, it would be a statement, the final brushstroke on an offseason that's already rewritten expectations. It would tell the league, and more importantly the clubhouse, that this year matters more than feelings, that redundancy will be sacrificed for impact. Championships are expensive, emotionally as much as financially, and the Blue Jays look ready to pay. So now I'll throw it to you, because this is where the Blue Jays report becomes a conversation rather than a sermon. Is Schneider a price you're willing to pay for October security, or does the risk of a rental feel like tempting fate? Let me know your take in the comments. And if this kind of deep, honest analysis is your thing, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and stick with us as this story unfolds. However it ends, one thing is clear. The math is brutal, but the ambition is beautiful. Let's go, Blue Jays.